So before getting into my own video, I just want to do a quick shout out to Roohif and his recent video, JTOL and Media 1, Epic Gravity Done Properly. On a recent road trip, Roohif hired a theodolite and has taken some very accurate measurements of mountain peaks from different elevations. In the analysis, you will see that the readings match perfectly to the globe expectation and disagree with the expected values for a flat Earth. Check out the video, you won't be disappointed. I also want to say thank you to those people that have contacted me by email asking if I'm okay. My video production rate has reduced in recent months, and there are two reasons for that. Number one, the structure of the company has changed slightly, and I'm now the senior pilot and also the safety officer, so I have a lot more administrative duties when I'm away on work trips. In addition, when I'm at home, I tend to prioritize my family. This is my young daughter who's now 19 months old, and there you can see she's having a great time learning to fly the Mavic Pro drone. So let's get on with my video. So when I first came across flat earthers about 2.5 years ago on YouTube, I literally could not believe some of the nonsense they were claiming about aircraft and flight planning. Now since then, many of their claims have been fully debunked. However, I'm noticing that there are still some flat earthers making ridiculous claims. In this video, we're going to look at a claim made by an alleged flat earth pilot who states that pilots are taught to flight plan based on a flat, non-rotating earth. And where he makes that claim is in this video, which is a pilot interview conducted between Steve the pilot and Paul on the plane. Let's just play the relevant section.
Well, the reason we don't have to train for a spherical moving Earth is because the plane's guidance systems, the navigation, the navigation system, it takes care of all of that for us. I don't have to worry about that. That's all taken care of by gravity and by the software. How do you respond to that?
Well, I simply explained to them that your initial training manuals told you that the Earth is flat and stationary, and all flight planning must be based on a flat, non-rotating Earth.
So there's the claim made by Steve. Now, we did our homework on this guy, and we found out his full name, and we checked his FAA record. And I'll show that to you later in the video, and you will see that, like Bob Nodell, this pilot has also exaggerated his qualifications in fixed-wing aircraft. But let's take a look at his claim now by looking at a real aviation flight training manual. Now, I did my initial theory training back in 1983 and 1984, and obviously back then we didn't have computers or the internet, so all the study was done out of training manuals like this. I'm currently in Perth, and today I went down to Jandakot Airport, which is the general aviation airport where they have all the flying schools, and they have a pilot shop that sells aviation training manuals. And I picked up this one, which is called Global Navigation for Pilots. So right away in the title, it tells you that we're navigating over a globe. And this talks about international flight techniques and procedures. If we go into the book, very early in the piece, it talks about the size and the shape of the Earth. For many navigational purposes, the Earth is assumed to be a perfect sphere, although in reality it is not quite perfect. It then talks about the dimensions measured at the equator. The Earth is approximately 6,887 nautical miles in diameter, while the polar diameter is approximately 6,864 nautical miles. This difference expresses the ellipticity of the Earth. Sometimes this is expressed as a ratio of the difference between polar and equatorial diameters to the equatorial diameter. And there you can see very clearly it is showing you that the shape of the Earth is a globe. So I'm not sure where Steve did his training, but it certainly wasn't in Australia or the USA, because I have an FAA ATPL license and a CASA ATPL license. I can absolutely vouch for the fact that we were trained to navigate over a globe Earth. So if we come to Chapter 3 of the same pilot training manual, it now talks about maps and charts and explains very clearly that aeronautical charts are projections from a globe. Charts and projections. There are several basic terms and ideas relative to charts and projections that the reader should be familiar with prior to discussing the various projections used in the creation of aeronautical charts. The first point, a map or chart is a small-scale representation on a plane surface of the spherical surface of the Earth or some portion of it. The final point, there are many difficulties which must be resolved when representing a portion of the surface of a sphere upon a plane. Two of these are distortion and perspective. So very clearly, once again, it's talking about the Earth being a globe. And as we go through the following pages, it shows very clearly how the maps are produced by projecting a globe onto a flat surface. And one of the most common types of projections used in aeronautical charts is the Lambert's conformal conic projection. And here is one example of an aviation chart, the V&C Perth, which is a visual navigation chart. The scale is 1 to 500,000, and they have these charts for the entire east coast of Australia, in addition to the Perth area, basically anywhere that you have a primary airport. It's a very detailed chart that shows controlled airspace, restricted areas, and also light aircraft lanes, which you can see running up the coast north of Perth there. On the side, you can clearly see that this is a Lambert conformal conic projection, and as a result, the lines of longitude will not line up perfectly with the edge of the map. There you can see that line of longitude is angled with respect to the border of the map. And that is because we are projecting the surface of a globe Earth, a spherical globe Earth, onto a flat piece of paper. And you cannot do that without there being distortions. So I bought that pilot training manual and the aviation chart today just to show you a hard copy, but you don't need to do that. On the FAA website, you have access to aviation handbooks and manuals for free, and I'll post a link in the description below. If you click on the Flight Navigator Handbook, you will see under the topic of maps and charts, once again, it very clearly states that the Earth is a sphere. For most navigational purposes, the Earth is assumed to be a perfect sphere. And again, in this document, shows the globe many times. It talks about the latitude and longitude system, great circles, small circles, and how they are used for navigation. It also shows clearly how those charts are produced as projections from a globe. So I did my CPL theory, that's commercial pilot's license, in 1983 and immediately followed it up with the senior commercial pilot's theory in early 1984. Now at the time, that license was called the senior commercial pilot's license, and I was too young to obtain one because you had to be 21 years of age and also have 1,500 hours. But you were able to do the theory, and I got that out of the way as soon as possible. I remember very clearly that everybody in the classroom had a physical globe like this on their desk. We didn't have iPads, we didn't have computers, we didn't know what the internet was. The instructors would write on a chalkboard and show overhead projector slides. Having a physical globe model made it much easier to visualize how the flight paths occurred on a globe and how to determine great circle tracks. Now at the time, CASA would administer the exams only 3 times per year, and you were quite limited as to what you could bring into the classroom for the exams. One of the items we were permitted to bring was a pencil sharpener. So everybody in the class went out and bought a pencil sharpener. So let's take a look at the FAA Airman Registry in relation to my own qualifications. I have a first class medical. It was last conducted in January 2019, and I hold an airline transport pilot's license. The rating is airline transport pilot, airplane multi-engine land, and these are the type ratings on that license. We have the Hawker Siddeley 125 series. I was flying a Hawker 900 XP for several years, and this is the Global Express, the BBD 700. Now let's take a look at our friend Steve and see what the FAA has to say about him. And here is the FAA record for Steve, the pilot in the interview. As you can see, he is a private pilot, fixed wing only. He does hold an airline transport pilot's license for helicopters. However, for fixed wing aircraft, you can see it is a single engine land private pilot license only. And there are no ratings for a Gulfstream G650 or a Citation X on this license. If he was rated on those aircraft on his FAA license, it would appear here. Now, I'm not going to divulge the man's name in my video. However, if you do a bit of research and watch this video, Morning at Manaslu Base Camp, you will hear that the pilot is the same person.
The helicopter at Manaslu Base Camp. The sun's not the best position here, but there's Manaslu in all her glory straight up there. The boys are working to build another tent. And the temperature now is probably what, about, Simone, about 6?
5-6 degrees, not less.
And if you scroll down to the description in this video, it lists the pilot's name very clearly, which you can then use in the FAA Airman Registry to check his qualifications yourself. And this pilot goes by the name of Vertical Freedom on YouTube, and he has visited my channel a number of times in the past. I have tried to engage him in discussions on flight planning, but he runs away every time. To make matters worse, I specifically asked him if he was the pilot in the interview, and he denied it. He has since deleted those comments from his channel. But now that we have seen his FAA record, and we know that he is just a private pilot, single engine fixed wing, it makes perfect sense why he was afraid to engage me on the topic of flight planning. And it's worth mentioning once again that my friendly challenge to all flat earth believers to produce a real flight plan based on a flat earth is still unanswered 2.5 years later. This challenge was posted in December 2016, and flat earthers won't touch it. This has them completely checkmated. There is not one flat earther on the planet capable of producing a real flight plan that works. They don't even try, because any flat earther who genuinely researches flight plans in an attempt to understand how they really work will quickly realize that they 100% confirm we live on a globe. And that is why flat earthers run like scalded cats when I ask them to produce a real flight plan. So I'm currently in Perth for a few days, and unfortunately the weather is not really suitable for any observations of Rottnest Island and Bathurst Lighthouse. So I decided to take a drive down to Jandakot Airport. Now this is the general aviation airport where you will find the flying schools and the light aircraft. When we operate into Perth, we generally go to the international airport, which is the same one used by Qantas and Virgin. But Jandakot Airport is where you will find the Royal Flying Doctor Service and most of the flying schools. Now the reason I came down here was to go to one of the pilot shops to pick up an aviation training manual, just to prove that pilots are in fact taught to fly over a globe. All navigation is based on a globe, and great circle distances are calculated based on a globe. So here's a pilot shop at Jandakot Airport. Let's go inside and have a look.
After Bell spends $12 million in development, Model 27 emerges, pushing Bell to the forefront of helicopter design and manufacturing. Determined to integrate the helicopter into the commercial world, Larry Bell sends out teams of employees with Model 47s to demonstrate its capabilities. These new models replace the cabin of the older model with the now familiar goldfish bowl plexiglass bubble. Bell succeeds in gaining commercial acceptance of his aircraft, and world events ensure the military will also learn about the Model 47's talents. Bell's Model 47D, the first helicopter mass-produced for military use, is developed in 19